From cover to cover, she'll find every pearl. Welcome to Jenny Reads the World.
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny, and today we're going to talk about all of the books that I read in November. But before we get into that, let's cover a really important topic that we need to make sure we address, and that is my hair. What do you guys think? I got it done today. So not only is it, pinkish, purplish, rose gold, we went with a bunch of different stuff, but also it's kind of, she curled it, and that will literally never happen again. So do enjoy it while I had to make a video while my hair looked like this, because it will never look like this again, ever. Unless maybe she does it like this exactly the same the next time. But who knows if I'll make a video that day. Anyway, what do you guys think? I like it. It's different. I've had the same haircut, same hair color roughly for years, and I just wanted to do something different, and pink seemed like a good way to go. Why not? Anyway, I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. November was kind of a busy month for me. It's been a little bit different. So up until this past year, I did craft shows every year, starting in September until about mid-December. So that was like all I did. Every weekend I was at a craft show. I do have an Etsy shop, by the way, now up and running. I'll put a link in the description. But that is so much different than having to sit for days and days in the cold a lot of times trying to sell things. So much respect out there to the craft show community. But what that really did is meant that I had so much more time this year to do things that I wanted to do. One of those things has been working on my sewing skills. I have historically been a big knitter or crochet, more the yarn arts, and now I'm moving into some more fabric things and books, obviously. So I wanted more time to read. I wanted more time to sew, and I wanted more time to vacation and just live my life and not spend all of it at craft shows and or preparing for craft shows. Part of what I did this month that took up a pretty significant amount of time is I took an 11-day cruise out of Manhattan on the Carnival Venezia. Do make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you have not already, because I will be releasing several videos coming up about my time on the Venezia. You'll get a few little sneak peeks here. But the big videos, like about the cruise itself, will be forthcoming. I also had my birthday. Brian and I went to dinner or went to lunch with his mom. And of course I made him take me to Barnes & Noble. I will be doing probably a little book haul, birthday book haul video, because I also went and bought myself some birthday presents at the bookstore today. Yeah, that's kind of been what's going on. And then work, and then Thanksgiving, and it's just been busy. So somehow in the midst of all of that, I did find time to read 15 books. I will say, obviously, the bulk of those I read during my traveling. You guys know that I love, my favorite thing in the world is to read on a cruise ship. So let's talk about all of the books that I read in November, many of which, not all, but many of which I read on a cruise ship. Okay, here we go. Okay, first up, First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is a thriller. Yes, you guys know I have my cheat sheet down here. Sorry if I keep looking down, but I can't remember this entire thing. Anyway, so First Lie Wins follows Evie Porter. Evie is in a relationship with Ryan, but there is a lot more to Evie than what meets the eye. And you may find that there's a lot more to Ryan than what meets the eye as well. When you're reading this book, just assume that everybody has got an ulterior motive. I did really like this though. There were lots of twists and turns. This was definitely a really quick, fast-paced thriller. I liked this. Thumbs up. Next up, The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. So this was recommended to me by one of my coworkers. I don't know that this is the sort of thing that I would normally read. I'm going to talk a lot about supernatural aspects, because I seem to have read a lot of books that were like ghosts this month, and that's just not really normally my thing. So I think this is something that I wouldn't normally really read, but this is a supernatural romance. So I loved this book though so much. This followed Delphi. Delphi is aged 27, and Delphi has now died from choking on a gas station hamburger. So one of the things that I loved so much about this book is that it was really funny. It was cute. It deals with death, obviously, but it's light. It made fun of itself a lot. I can't do these supernatural books that take themselves too seriously, and this book didn't. This book was very, very light. So Delphi has died. She has found herself in the afterlife where she meets Merritt. Merritt is her afterlife therapist, and she also meets Jonah, who is her soulmate. But Jonah is not dead. Jonah is in a coma. He's unconscious. And Jonah goes right back to Earth. And Delphi now finds herself, after 27 years of a loveless life basically on Earth, having met her soulmate only to have him torn away from her. So Merritt says, listen, I like to play games. I'm kind of bored here in the afterlife. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you back to Earth. You have to find Jonah and get him to kiss you in 10 days. If you fail, then you belong to me in the afterlife. So many, many hijinks. So really the question then becomes, can she find Jonah and get him to fall in love with her in 10 days? So this was really cute. It was really light. It was fun. Give this one a read for sure. Okay, next up is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This book is a cruise ship murder mystery. And naturally, I had to read this while I was on a cruise ship. I think I ended up probably liking it more than I might have otherwise because I read it on a cruise ship. So it's not, I don't know if I'm giving it as fair of a judgment as I might have otherwise. I did really like it. It was fast-paced, quick page turner. So this follows Laura. She goes by Lo, and she is a London-based travel journalist who gets an opportunity to go on this inaugural, very elite, like 10 cabins cruise to the Norwegian fjords to see the Northern Lights. But is she going to make it back alive? Dun, dun, dun. Read this one. I thought it was pretty good. Okay. A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Fishinger. This is categorized as YA or middle grade fantasy, and there were many things about this that felt strangely young to me. And when I say strangely, what I mean is, so our primary character, her name is Mona. She's 14, young adult, right? Middle grade? I don't know. Is 14 young adult or middle grade? It's a tough call. And she works in her family bakery. She's a wizard, but her magic only really works on dough. So she can make you the best cupcakes or cookies or bread that you've ever had in your life, but she can't really do anything else. But she does occasionally make her own little like gingerbread army, which is kind of fun. There were a lot of aspects about this that were fun, but what I didn't like is that I felt like the characters and the writing were really inconsistent. So there were certain aspects where it's like, oh, Mona, she's just a little kid. She's only 14. You know, you can't expect too much of her. She's only 14. She's just a kid. And then it would turn around and be like, well, Mona works full time in her family bakery. She basically has all of the responsibilities of being an adult. She even gets accused and held for murder at one point. They very much treat her like an adult in a lot of, it just felt very inconsistent, and I struggle with that. I don't like the inconsistency. Is she older? Is she young? That being said, it was really cute. There were a lot of things that I really liked about this, but maybe point it to your middle grade. Next up, The Guest by B.A. Paris. I've now read several books by this author. I think this one might have been my favorite. I knocked this back in no time at all. This is one of those perfect, very fast-paced, 300-ish page thrillers. I love a 300-page thriller. Like, let's just knock this stuff out. So this one follows Iris and her family. Iris and her husband have just returned home from a short little weekend getaway. And when they arrive at home, they find that Iris's best friend has left her husband, who she found out had an affair, and the friend has moved into the house, moved into the master bedroom, rearranged the kitchen, cut her hair to match Iris's hairstyle, and now they cannot get her to leave. She keeps saying like, oh, I just need to get on my feet. I just need to get on my feet, but she will not leave. There are several twists in this book, one of which I did figure out, but I did not figure out all of the twists. So this, I think, is my favorite book that I've read by this author, so definitely pick this one up. Next, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is a romantasy, so this is book 2 of the Nightborn series. The best way to describe this series would be something like a vampire Hunger Games. I absolutely loved book 1, The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. I knocked that sucker back in no time at all. These are 550, 600-page fantasy novels, and I read that first one, boom, no problem. This one was much slower paced. I didn't really feel like the book picked up until we were about halfway through, and for a 600-page fantasy novel, that's a lot of like, okay, waiting for something to happen. That being said, once it did get going, it was on fire. It was great. The 3rd book just dropped, and I will definitely be reading that. So the next 2 that I'm going to talk about were The Broken Girls and Murder Road by Simone St. James. So I have seen a lot of books advertised about this author, but I'd never read any before. Now I've read 2. Both books have a supernatural element to them. One annoyed me and one didn't, and I'm going to talk about a little bit why. So book 1, The Broken Girls. So this book was a little bit hard to follow at times because it's following multiple points of view and multiple timelines. So you really have to keep track of who your characters are and when they are. So the part of the book is set in modern times, and it's following our main character. She's a journalist, and she is following the story about this kind of dilapidated, old, broken down school that was like an all-girls school for girls who maybe had hard times, gotten into some trouble in their life, didn't really have anywhere else to go. And this school has been defunct now for many years, and it's being renovated. The main reason, though, this journalist is really interested in this renovation and this story is that her sister was murdered 20 years before and dumped on the grounds. And although someone was captured and accused of the murder and been convicted of the murder, she's not really sure that the man who was convicted of her sister's murder was the man who murdered her sister. And he won't confess, and she just wants to find out the truth. Flashing back sometimes to 1950, we were following this other group of girls and another girl who was killed on the property. So it's kind of trying to figure out how these 2 timelines intersect. And it was really interesting. It does have a small supernatural element to it, but the supernatural aspect of it was kind of in the background. It was kind of like the ghost story that everybody told, and was it real or not? So it wasn't like a prevailing part of the story. It didn't dominate the storyline and what really happened. However, on the Murder Road, we are now following April and Eddie. This book is set in 1995, and they are on their honeymoon. So they're a relatively young couple, and they are heading out to this like quaint little resort town, but they've taken this wrong turn, and they've ended up on this ragged dirt road where they pass this woman who is hitchhiking. Once they get her in the car, they realize that she has been stabbed. She's bleeding profusely. She's very injured. They take her to the hospital, where unfortunately she dies. Well, they now get accused of her murder because they were the last people to see her. And once they get entwined in this murder investigation, they find out that there have been multiple murders going back 20 years on this dilapidated old road. And there is a strong supernatural element to this that I just thought was stupid. So there's just not really any other. I thought it was stupid. It was very unbelievable. I didn't buy it, and I didn't like this one. Okay, Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill. I'll be totally honest, I partially picked this up because I thought the cover was so pretty. This is gothic sci-fi. So this isn't set in the 1850s. This is centered around the great niece of Victor Frankenstein. So she and her scientist husband are desperate to kind of make their name in the scientific community. She has found now all of these notes that were left behind by her great uncle, Victor Frankenstein, and they've decided they are going to try and recreate his work. But they're not going to try and recreate a man. They're going to try and recreate this now defunct sea creature, that there's all this argument happening in the scientific community of what this sea creature really looked like. So they're going to make their own version of it. I really wanted to like this, but I just didn't. And I think part of that is that I got a little lost in all of the scientific vernacular, and that's just not my thing. I also thought it was very derivative of the original Frankenstein, which I read in high school, still a while ago, but I remember it. And I think I would have just soon reread Frankenstein rather than having read this. I just didn't, like, our main character, I didn't feel any kind of connection to her at all. I didn't care for her. So anyway, I'd skip this one probably. But, you know, if you're really into sci-fi and like Frankenstein, maybe you'd like it better than I did. I don't know. Next up, Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is straight up modern romance. I have read quite a few of Lucy Score's books, and I really like her writing. One thing I will point out is that I don't think Lucy Score has written a book that's under 500 plus pages. This one's definitely 550, 600. But it's so fast paced and the writing is so easy to digest that you don't feel, you're not plodding through like a 600 page, you know, heavy fantasy novel or something like that. They're very consumable. So this follows Naomi. Naomi has just left her fiance at the altar, and she rolls up into this little quaint town called Knockemout. And this is now book 1 of a 3-book series. I'm about halfway through the 2nd book now. And she has gone to this town because her twin sister lives there, Tina. And Tina has never done a good thing in her life. She is just in one snafu after another. And so she has called Naomi up and said, oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time. Come help me. Naomi goes to rescue her sister, and just calamity follows. And she ends up taking custody of her 11-year-old niece, who she didn't even know existed. She ends up meeting Knox while she is there. Knox is a cranky, grumpy, confirmed bachelor. So this is definitely a grumpy sunshine trope. And I loved it. It was great. The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. This is a thriller, I guess. So Rekulak became very well known in recent years because he's the guy who wrote Hidden Pictures. If you guys read that, or if you remember that one also has a supernatural element to it, and this one does not. The Last One at the Wedding does not have a supernatural element, but I actually liked Hidden Pictures better than I liked this. I think part of the reason that I did not like this is that this was just felt like one bad conspiracy theory after another. This follows Frank. He is the father of Maggie. Maggie is in her mid-20s. She's a very independent lady, and they have not spoken for a few years. They had a falling out. Maggie calls him up and says, hey, Dad, I'm getting married in a few months. Please come to my wedding. Walk me down the aisle. We're going to do the whole family reunion thing, even though we haven't seen each other or haven't even spoken to each other in years. And Frank is just so desperate to rekindle this relationship with his daughter that he's basically like, okay, honey, this is fine. We'll do whatever you want. Here are the biggest issues that I had with this. The characters were inconsistent. Like Maggie in particular felt very inconsistent to me. Some of her behavior, like she was really sweet, but she was really conniving, and then she was really sweet, and she was really, you know, and it just very inconsistent. And I don't think there were any of the characters that I liked. None of them. I didn't like Frank. I didn't like Maggie. And then the real kicker is like the sheer number of bad decisions that had to have been made by basically everyone for this to work was pretty overwhelming. And I would skip this one. Just read Hidden Pictures. The One by John Mars. This book was interesting. This was categorized as a thriller as well. I've read a lot of John Mars's books, and this was far and away my least favorite. So the premise of this is a world where dating has basically been done away with in favor of you submit your DNA to this app or to this company, and they will put you in their matchmaking system, and You just wait to be matched to your one true DNA match. It's basically, this is your genetic soulmate. And when you meet this person, it is bells, it is whistles. Everything has gone into place. Nothing else matters except this one other person. And if you aren't in a matched, relationship, then everybody feels sorry for you, and you're just biding your time until you meet the one. This is told through multiple points of view, multiple experiences people are having. And as a thought exercise, this book is really quite interesting to think about what all of the potential ramifications could be of this type of dating situation where you meet somebody and you're like, oh, I like that guy. And then you guys decide you're going to submit your DNA together, and wait, it turns out now you're not a match. Do you go forward with that relationship? What happens if you're married already and you submit your DNA just to check if your spouse is your matched person? Turns out they're not, but now you've been matched with somebody else. And it's really kind of interesting to think about how all of that goes. But I do think that like a good subtitle of this would be Selfish People Behaving Selfishly. I didn't like any of these characters either. I was not rooting for anybody. And the twists were not very twisty. So, Creep by Jennifer Hillier. This is a thriller, and I think Creep is an appropriate name for this, because this book was definitely creepy. So this follows Dr. Sheila Tao. She is a professor of psychology, and Sheila's been having an affair with one of her graduate students. His name is Ethan. And Sheila gets engaged to the man of her dreams, like an awesome guy. He's a good man. She loves him. She's excited to marry him. And so she breaks off her affair with Ethan once she becomes engaged. But not only does she tell Ethan that she no longer wants to have an affair with him, but also she's going to transfer him. He's not going to be her graduate student anymore. She's transferring him to a different advisor. And Ethan does not take kindly to this level of rejection. So when I first started reading this, I thought this was kind of your classic fatal attraction, but there are many more layers to it than that. There is a twist at the end, but it is so heavily forecast, you will see it coming. That being said, I did still really enjoy reading this. Very heavy trigger warnings for addiction, though, so watch out for that. But yeah, this was good. Last but not least, this was probably my favorite book that I read this month, and that is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Sutanto. So I think there's a series of this. I would love to continue reading this as well. I'm going to call this a cozy mystery more than a thriller. So this follows Vera. So Vera she's this like kind of classic elderly Chinese lady. She owns a world famous tea house in San Francisco, but she calls it Vera Wang's famous tea house after, hoping people will get confused and think that it's the dressmaker, not, Vera Wong. One morning, Vera has a very strict set of, rules. Like, she gets up every day at a certain time. She does her morning routine, and it is very set. One morning, she comes downstairs and she finds a dead body on the floor of her tea house. She calls the police. The police come out, and they decide that it was a natural death, that he had an allergic reaction, and he just died. Vera is convinced, however, that there is foul play, and so she begins to kind of look into his death herself, and she starts interviewing all these people, and she just kind of becomes her own found family. This is cute. It is charming. It is witty. It's funny. I loved all of these characters. I want to go solve murders with Vera. Is really what has happened. So read this one, all the stars. So there you go. That is the month of November for me. Please do stay tuned in. I will be posting soon some videos from my cruise, as well as more bookish content. So please remember to like and subscribe. Please leave me in comments down below. Most importantly, what you guys think of my hair. I know the lighting is not great. Can you appreciate the pinkness? I don't know. Also, let me know what your favorite book was that you read in the month of November. All right. Take care. Have good holidays. All right. Bye.
From cover to cover, she'll find every pearl. Welcome to Jenny reads the world.